Hey everybody! With the release this year of The Castles of Tuscany by Stefan Feld, I was reminded how much I love the Castles of Burgundy and all of the other games too. The original, 2010, the card game, the dice game, and then the Castles of Tuscany that just came out this year in 2020. It's kind of amazing how many wonderful spin-offs and variants of this system exist, and how each of these games feels like their own, but they all feel like the Castles of Burgundy. And when I say that, it's about the groupings of your estates or the color buildings, and then also how you decide to take your path, because you cannot do it all. And that's again the thing that I kind of like about this game that just keeps you coming back for more, is that you can never fully finish any map. And I think that's probably built in to keep you coming back, but also offer such a variety of strategies in the game. So in the Castles of Burgundy, which still to this day is in my top 10 games of all time, like I don't know if it will ever leave, but it is one of my favorites. I will always play this game with anybody who wants to play the Castles of Burgundy. It kind of surprises me just a little bit how much I like this game. And I just have to hand it to the gameplay itself, because the theme is not particularly strong. And I like theme, I like story, and this is more of an abstract game. It's just not a space theme, it's not a fantasy theme, it's not a... I mean, there's just like, it just doesn't feel like it's grounded in anything. If I told you, you asked me, what's the Castles of Burgundy about, I would say, you have to lay your hex tiles down in the most efficient pattern to earn victory points early on, but also to do chain effect bonuses. And you roll dice, and you get to do a variety of things with your dice. That's the game. I mean, that really is the game. So if I'm wanting to get that flavor for Castles of Burgundy because I want to compete with other people when it comes to the shipping tiles and when it comes to the tiles on the board, I mean, this is kind of the perfect game. It's the perfect amount. It's a balance of player interaction and individual player board. You are building your estates in this particular fashion. So there are a variety of maps you can play on, so it never feels old, and it doesn't get old when you play because it's not the same configuration every time. And I think that's what keeps Castles really going, is just you have all these different configurations of tiles. So if I want to play the goodie and the oldie, it is the Castles of Burgundy. It is still in my top 10 for sure. When the card game came out, I was like, oh yeah, we took the card game on a trip we had a couple years back, right when it came out, and I thought, oh man, this is great. It's kind of like Castles of Burgundy, but cardified, where you don't have the dice. The cards actually have multi-functions, and these cards work as buildings that you can build, or they work as the pips on the die that you use to buy more buildings or to build your buildings into your estate. And so you have collections of 3, and you get those groupings, you get those victory points if you have 3 of a kind, essentially. And so there's the same feel, the same kind of mechanism, but no dice, no little cardboard hexes that you put down on a map. I mean, you have the workers that let you kind of fudge dice. Instead of having your dice get you workers, you just actually have worker cards and you just pay them back to the supply. But it's just wonderful. The take another turn that you really get with the castles, the green tile, you can also get that when you do the 3 silver nuggets and you turn those back in. So for me, the card game really took the original and said, we're doing the original, but we're also making it easier to play, and it's all just cards. And I thought, that's really clever. So when you want to be able to take something with you, and you want to leave and not take a giant box of Castles of Burgundy with you with all these little bits and chits and stuff falling all over the place, dice rolling, so it's not like really noisy, take the card game. Card game is a great substitute with the same, I would say, similar amount Obviously not the placing and the strategic, putting down of your tiles in an area, but a very similar level of strategy and a level of depth in the card game. Then the dice game came out, and that really lightens and kind of like just kind of takes it from super complex and hard and challenging with a lot of stuff to way less stuff. And in the dice game, you have a little sheet. So this is essentially a roll and write now, and it kind of came out right when the roll and writes were super hot and like hitting the tables, and I thought that was really clever, really smart, again, to have the Castles of Burgundy as a dice game. You roll these dice, and then everybody is going to simultaneously select a color and a number, and they're going to find that color on their little player board, and they're going to mark through it if it's adjacent to a previously marked hex. So you've got your map in front of you, much like the original game, the Castles of Burgundy, but in this case you're not placing anything, you're just marking on it with your pencil because, again, this is a roll and write. And it's fast, it's quick, it's much easier and much lighter than the previous two, just the game itself, the board game, and the card game. I would suggest introducing people to the Castles of Burgundy through the dice game first, before you jump into the board game. And then I would say follow the board game with the card game if people are familiar with it, so that you can travel with it, and you can play it when you're not at just a giant table or somebody else's house, with all of those nice comfortable things that you get. One more thing to add about the dice and card versions of the Castles of Burgundy is that both of them have solitaire versions, which means you can play by yourself. Now the Castles of Burgundy, the board game, and the Castles of Tuscany doesn't, so make sure that if you want to play by yourself, check out the dice or the card versions of the Castles of Burgundy. And then lastly, this brings me to the newest installment of the Castles of, and that is Tuscany. And I was just so blown away by how the game feels like the Castles of Burgundy, but it simplifies it, but it doesn't, it's still a board game. Like, they made it like the Castles of Burgundy. It feels like it went through all these iterations and then came back out the other side, and with the placement of your 3 larger tiles that you get to arrange, you get to look at them and flip them over and turn them around and place them, you get to essentially put together, well, I'm going to want 3 tiles of this kind, 2 tiles of that kind, and then I don't even have a chance of getting, more than 2 or 3 of these other colors. And you kind of just arrange it that way because, much like the original game, Tuscany has you getting victory points for 1, 2, or 3 of a kind when you finish an area. And so instead of in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or A, B, C, D, E in the original board game, in Tuscany you only have those 3 different markers to get to. And what you do have as a race is 3 phases of scoring. And your 3 phases of scoring are going to accumulate in a really, really competitive way. So in the very first phase of scoring, you are going to count up all your points and just move your marker on the continuing track, right? There are 2 tracks. One is your ultimate victory point track, and the other one is your just continuous progress in the game when you get victory points. So let's say you get, 15 points in your first turn. You are going to be able to bank that and then score that essentially in rounds 2 and 3. And if other people get fewer points, they're not getting those points 3 times as well as you are when you get your points 3 times. So you get your 15 points in round 1 and you move your ultimate victory point marker up to 15. Now they're equal. Well, in round 2, you're going to have that kind of ongoing track continue because you're going to get more than 15 points. You're going to add 2 and you're going to, I got a point here, 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 here. Now your new victory point is 20. Well, you're going to add 20 to your 15, and so now your final score that you're going to count at the end of the game, that tracker is now sitting at 35. So you see how you got those 15 points again? And you're going to get them yet again in that 3rd phase. It's so clever because it pushes players to get early victory points because you get to bank them. But you have to be really strategic and not blow out your whole game in that first phase and not be ready to continue that pressure and that kind of competitiveness with the central display of items and with bonuses, because the bonuses in this game are really cool. They just let all of your actions be super cool and super souped up. And so I think the Castles of Tuscany is smart and clever and interactive and wholly replayable. It is just so fun to be in that world of matching tiles with certain benefits and abilities. I don't know how Stefan Feld keeps doing it, but he does. And so when I thought about this, this video, I wanted to make here's how I'm going to rank my Castles of, and I just never could place one over the other for any reason. I mean, I thought of, here are the different ways in which I would use the game, here are the different places I would play the game, here are the different reasons why I would play Tuscany over the dice game versus, board game over the card game. And so what I did was I just wanted to use this as like a celebration of the Castles of Burgundy / Tuscany, because they're all really, really good games and they all have their purpose. And honestly, if you ask me any 4 of them, would you like to play one of these and name it? I say yes. I say yes every time. I like this abstract series, and I think it just works for my brain, and it just makes my brain really happy. And again, it just kind of surprises me. Not that big on abstract, but to me, this is the kind of abstract game that I wrap my head around and I just really, really jump into. And I think it just has such rich player choice and opportunity, and I love that perfect balance of I'm working on my stuff while we're all kind of competing for similar resources. I think that balance is just perfectly there. And so if you have a chance to try the new Castles of Tuscany, please do. And if you do like one of these over the other for a certain reason, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And if you just want to just be happy about Castles of Burgundy, do that too, because I think it's a great board game. And after that game came out with the dice game, the card game, and then Castles of Tuscany, I honestly don't know what's next, but I'm really excited.